Is there anything that you like to do as a dungeon master, especially with the new dungeon masters watching us right now? Like, is there seeds that you like to interject into the plot line because you know they'll pay off? Like, there's nothing like killing a good villain that you really hate, right?
Yeah,
You know, and I
totally.
always have I tend with my campaigns to almost have 3 villains.
Mhm.
One that starts off as a friend, right? Who seems kind of helpful, but semi shady. And then you've got the first villain, which is pretty on the nose. Like, this is the bad guy. That guy dies.
Yeah,
Then
bunch of
maybe
bad.
there's the guy behind the guy, and then the final guy is the one that you probably helped this entire time. That
Right.
kind of stuff that we see often in narratives. Um, but I want them to feel it when it's at the end of all things. Like, I want them to have an emotional connection to that plot. Like, okay, this almost, it feels a little bit like a Destiny, and
Yeah,
also it's clobbering time.
certainly. Yeah, some catharsis is in order. Yeah, nobody. It's unsatisfying for the most part to have a villain get away unless it's a really beloved villain, and you know.
Right.
But but I think like for me, making sure that I create game elements, villains, organizations, plots, all kinds of things that are kind of compartmentalized, and like you could keep going, you could open that next door, and keep going deeper into this adventure, or you could not, and like the death of this henchman might just become the death of this boss. Then the fact that there was things afterwards we could just conveniently forget about because it's just the DM that knows about it. And
Mm-hmm.
being able to have that sort of plausible, like, yeah, that was it. And then, you know, once you get in the habit of sort of designing things that are more like Lego bricks, right? And how you assemble them together and how you build a game out of them. Um, and it becomes easy to say, okay, we've got this close that we need to come to. There's some pause or the campaign's ending or whatever. That's okay. We'll be able to draw something to a close and have a satisfying ending. And gives you enough time to like reel in any threads you might need to that you've already laid that would suggest further action, but not. Um, I wish I had a step-by-step guide on how to do that, or just a matter of thinking and how you're sort of like introducing things to your game. Like, I think it's easy to have big overarching conspiracies and plots, and that's very satisfying. It can lead to a lot of good gaming, but ask yourself, if this had to end before you envision
Mm-hmm.
it ending, what's it going to look like? Where would be some good stopping off points?
What's the longest campaign you've ever run?
Mhm. Well, okay. So the longest continuous like session to session campaign I've run is about 2.5 years. I have run campaigns in the same two worlds pretty much exclusively for the last 10 or so years.
Mm-hmm.
So while it's like multiple games in them, it's all the same campaign world, the same sort of area. So they kind of bleed together. But the longest running one from like start to finish was about 2.5 years. And we were done by the end of it. We were, you're just like, we should just stop playing. We're all tired of this. I don't even think we ended it. I think we just walked away.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. But
I find that funny if it's like the characters are like finally just no, I can't. Why are we doing this?
well, this was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, so the characters had
Ah,
multiple permanent injuries and
right, yeah,
madnesses and the like. They were ready to be done mercifully.
understood.
Um,
We
but
got a quick question from chat. Would you
yeah.
ever try to engineer a last man standing sort of finale like Rogue One or the Magnificent Seven? I would only, and that's from Wandering Wildman. I would only do that with the buy-in from the players themselves. So I think I would make it extremely clear. Here's what I would probably do because I'd want it to be satisfying. I would flat out tell them if you go down this path, not all of you are going to make it, and maybe none of you. And if you're like explicit as the DM, like, hey, I'm not joking. Like, this isn't like me. I'm not going to cheating roles behind the DM screen or anything like that. Like, you can totally go this path, but it may be the end of all things. I think that's deeply satisfying. Or yes, you can talk outside of the game and say, hey, wouldn't this be a great way for the campaign to end? I love that option of like everyone's like, you know what, we're probably not gonna make it out of this. I think that's how often do you get to do that? Like that's one of the key components in all these stories is when
Certainly.
when the heroes are like, let's do it anyways.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
Yeah,
that's what makes them heroes, right? They wouldn't
exactly.
be heroes if they were like, oh, this is safe. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
You know, it's because they might not come out, but they still do it. That makes them heroes. And the fact that I would largely agree with you. I love those moments where, all right, we're rolling in the open, all cards on the table. And while it can feel kind of war gamey, especially if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
tense and you got the minis and they mat out and everything, um, the fact that every die roll is weighted with you're immediately invested. Am I going to get hit? Did I pass this save? Can we get the bad guy? That kind of thing. Can we stop them from whatever foul? And have it be something that is emergent from the play instead of like decided on beforehand. I find very satisfying. I love it because sometimes you walk away and it was like that was the skin of our teeth.
I and I don't experience this as often now because I'm often dungeon mastering, but I recently saw a game and turn away, whatever. And I'm like, I don't think they're gonna make it. And I got tense. I got very tense
Uh-huh.
because it's almost like it's just ingrained in you after you played for a while. You're just like, oh, this may really be it. Like
Yeah.
it's a die. It's not just one dice roll too. It's a die roll over and over and over again. This could have gone the other way, and you see it happen as a dungeon master and as a player. These moments unfold where everyone may die, or a key character dies, or by the skin of your teeth, by the dice rolls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a character who did have another out, but they used divine intervention to save their own life. If they rolled it. They had me roll it actually for them because they were so
Oh yeah.
tense.
Yeah.
So I used divine intervention and it saved them from this situation. But I almost like freaking cried because it was really kind of save or die moment of like,
And what a great way to be saved. Like your God literally intervenes to save your life.
right.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that.
It was definitely one of my favorite moments of D&D, and
Yeah.
I think that's something that's also important is that endings are really good, and a little bit of fear can push D&D a long way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, really can.
Like because again, like if you're playing a character that is very much immortal, that's amusing in some ways, certainly. But I feel like there's always got to be a cost there. But
Yeah,
boy, you do remember the characters that you lost along the way.
certainly.
Um, yeah.
Certainly. Yeah.
And I have fond memories of like particularly a very terrible character who eventually died, and it was in the best way possible. Like it was it was like a kind of heroic, but not like 100% heroic ending. Like like it was a very I'm your Huckleberry kind of ending.
Sure.
So
It's satisfying.
yeah,
Satisfying. Yeah, I guess because I have so few characters, I don't have many of them that died. One of my proudest characters is that they never have died, and I play them in like old school original edition D&D, which is ultra deadly, and I'm very proud of that fact that they haven't died yet. But like I've had a lot of near deaths, especially with fifth edition. Um, and like there's been at least one or two times where I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't this would suck if this happened. I would like for this to keep playing this character. And yet we're dice rolls in the open. It's tense. You're on the edge of your seat. We survived a near TPK by our rogue slinking away to lead off the enemy away from us
oh
and
wow,
hopefully come back for us. And I rolled a clutch 20 on my final death save. I was two
oh
out of two.
god,
Two out of two,
no,
Todd. Two saves, two fails. Rolled a 20 on the last one. It's like, all right, my guy opens his eyes. All the other characters, smoldering ruins, right? At least two of them outright dead. I was like, my guy just stays where he is for a while. He's going to play dead. Just take his bearings. And then we had to like pull everybody out and slink through the underbrush. It was tense. It was awesome. But it was also one of those things where it's like, if we'd gone out, I'd been hot. I'm like, man, that's I keep
Yeah.
playing because I gotta have revenge on that dragon. But
Oh yeah.
yeah.
My children will avenge me.
Right. Right. I'm gonna play his cousin. He's coming back.
We have a few more questions here. I have a campaign I created 28 years ago and have run many, many individual campaigns throughout my original world. How do you, as a DM, find closure for a campaign world's end? Ooh, I don't know. That's interesting. I'm always excited for the next thing as a DM,
Yeah.
and I like building on a campaign world over and over and over again. But yeah, I don't know that I've ever mourned any of my own settings necessarily.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
one word.
because I'm always excited to like create my own homebrew world
Oh yeah.
next time. But yeah, I have run a game of D&D that's been in the same setting for like since I was a little kid. But
Yeah.
I've also dispensed with many a very uh, unusual D&D setting as well.
Oh God, yes. Oh God. I have one word. Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Right. Like what better way to send out, just to send off their campaign world than every shattering threat that the PCs thwarted, every demigod status villain, every whatever, like one of them gets through, and this is the end. Uh, and if I'm remembering right, there's been some D&D modules of editions past that actually had like, are you ending your campaign world? Here's 3 scenarios you can use, kind of, you know, a
Right.
Sararak comes back or the Tarask is unleashed or something. Um, but yeah, just something like one of the endings in narratives I sometimes really enjoy, especially for like higher level, higher power, like Guardians of the Galaxy sort of scope adventures, is like the ending of we're about to start the big battle and then end. So that there's this, you're ending on this moment of uncertainty and
Uh,
tension, but it's still like you're still kind of pumped. It's not like an end where they're all roughed up. They could still be fine. And or you can just imagine just like these characters are so over the top and uh, potent that you can just imagine the rest of their story
mhm.
without needing to actually see it or play through it. Um, I don't know if anywhere else take that idea, but that is an option for DMs who want to keep the door open, but also,
Yeah.
want to end on a bang, I guess.
I know lets the players kind of think, like, come up with their own ending in a way. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think very old show Angel actually ended this way, where they were like finally facing off with just like an alleyway full of demons and dragons and everything else,
Mm.
and that's how they chose to end that show. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of brilliant, really, because
Yeah,
I found that more satisfying than an actual end.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
because
like the
that
idea that
allows everyone to kind of like, well, who.
yeah, I like the idea that life can go on and your character's life can go on, and you're just sort of like parting ways with them at this
Yeah.
point. Like you, and I really, especially for those characters that really have a life of their own, it does sort of feel like, well, I'll see you later, you know, and you'll come back to that character over the years and revisit them, or the archetype of them, and like. But I feel the same way with like campaign worlds. Like, a minute ago I said apocalypse, and that's sort of flippant, but it's also like, yeah, you could literally destroy your campaign world, but that doesn't mean it has to end. It means that maybe the new one takes place in the,
Hmm.
grows from the ashes of the other. That's how I ended up with two, which was I wasn't done with the first one, and the second one had an apocalyptic centuries long sunless existence, which necessitated a whole reboot. Uh, so I I think there's something to be said for like finding a way to have continuity or leaving the door open for it, as well. Especially like, I mean, you just spend so much time with these characters and places. It's hard to like completely shut the door.
I had a character wish that nothing that had happened, and that they were
Oh,
back to the beginning, and that was just that was Hope Lavelle. Hope Lavelle was playing in a game of Beyond Heroes, and that was like one of my. I just laughed because like we were kind of looking for a way to reboot a little bit, and she just tossed out there. As always, actually, Hope Lavelle's very consistent with this stuff, and just like made a way. Everyone had got a wish, and she wished like we were back to the beginning, and it just like reset the entire campaign, which was hilarious.
that's great.
I think the other thing, she was secretly playing a god, and
We thought that this secret god had struck you down.
Yeah, so Hope Lavelle was playing a goddess in disguise, pretending to be one of the player characters, and figured out that like, oh, God's magic when using Shatter will affect magical items. Only divine magic will, coming from a god, and it was like this wonderful loophole to like destroy basically their flying castle. And that was all Hope Lavelle. Was pretty amazing. So,
Right.
yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of ways. Wish is a fun way to end something.
Yeah, wish is a great way to just end the whole thing. I wish this was all a dream.
Or make everyone grab a card from the deck of many things.
Oh, I have seen many campaigns end over a deck of many things. Or it's not always immediately, but the deck of many things is certainly the sort of the final nail. It really depends on how you handle the aftermath of.
Ooh, good question. Did you ever get into an argument with players or a dungeon master over how a character was killed off?
Yeah.
I don't know that I no, I've had a player do it, yeah, for sure. But I was like in my teens or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that social contract really hadn't developed necessarily, and the player was very upset their character died, but they also did something that was like, yeah, that's a bad place to be, buddy.
That's a bad place to be. Yeah, same. I had to show box text to be like, nope, this is what I said. That I was definitely talking about an open pit into a pool of lava.
Yeah,
things like that. That was Pruitt as well.
Oh no!
He was like, I can't believe that's bullshit. I was
it is funny how often sometimes people will think like, you cheated me.
Yeah. Well, that was that under an hour from despair to excitement that I was mentioned earlier at the top of the show.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Little quiet time, back with a new character, no problem.
It still cracks me up when someone asks me like, how high up am I? I was like, you're 65 feet, and it's what I said.
Yeah,
and then someone shot the eagle, and the eagle dropped him, and that was it. I'm like, I did say 65 feet. You dropped. You are puddle. You're a puddle. There are rules for this, and we're using them today. So pretty rough. Yeah, probably don't play with that player necessarily if they're too upset. I mean, I'm sure there's some arguments are going to come over there. Like, that's natural. Like the player should be the player's advocate for sure. Yeah, and the dungeon master should be too. But
certainly, there have been times when after the end of a session, I've been like, "Hey, GM, that wasn't legit. Like that was not a legit kill." Including one of those TPKs that I mentioned that was retconned. We just, we all of us, like player, DM, everybody was like, this was bad. Something bad happened. Like, it wasn't supposed to be, like this, or DM didn't foresee it. And they'll be like, okay, next week we're going to pick it up from this point, and sort of like reset that. But there've been times as a player I've been like, I don't like how this went down, and when I'm that player, I just try to make sure that I'm not like making it personal, and just be like, here, I checked out the rule book. I thought this said this. Were we using that rule, or were we making a modification to it? Like, I usually approach it in some way of maybe there's something I don't know that was at play here, especially if it's like a rules issue. And I've had other players do it on behalf of other players, like a third player. Say, like player A gets their character killed and player B is like, that's BS. It shouldn't have happened like that.
Yeah.
Player A going, it's cool, don't worry about it.
Yeah, you do see actually you will see quite, especially in really nice groups, players defending players and being their advocates in games. It's always pretty great and fascinating.